A big hello and welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our last webinar of 2025 about modernising customs operations. And we're here to take a look at where you think you stand on the journey to modernisation and automation. And we'll be exploring 5 key dimensions. But before we get started, as always, a few things to mention. So your microphones are muted during the presentation. If you have any questions, then please use the Q&A button to submit them. We'll cover as many as we can, but if we don't get to them all, then we'll include them in the FAQ of our Content Hub. During the course of the webinar, we'll be asking 5 poll questions. Please note that you need to answer all 5 of the questions, otherwise we can't provide you with your modernisation score after the webinar, but I will keep reminding you as we go through. And as always, the webinar is recorded and will be shared with you in the coming days, along with your score and some other helpful resources. So now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers who are joining us today. So starting from the top, we have Jens Vandala, Danone's EU Customs Trade Compliance Manager. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Jens. It's very much appreciated. And we've got Ludo de Meira, C4T's Director of Strategic Customer Engagement. I got the name finally right, Ludo, I think. Yeah, he's laughing and smiling. So Ludo's going to be sharing his frontline perspectives on the topics and will help with the Q&A. And we'll also hear from Jens later in the webinar about Danone's modernisation and automation journey. And then there's me, Joe Threlfall. I'll be taking some of the presenting responsibilities this time round, as well as moderating. So please let me know if you need anything. So what are we discussing today? Let's take a quick look at the agenda. We'll kick off things about why modernisation matters now. We'll then dive into the first 4 of the dimensions of modernisation, and then introduce you to the customs modernisation matrix. There's a lot of M's and C's in this presentation. Each section will be followed by a poll question, and then we'll hear from Jens and finish the final section, and then to the Q&A and wrap up. So you've got quite a lot to fit in the hour, as I mentioned. But before we get started, as we've been doing the previous webinars, we've been capturing people's responses to a question we ask when you register. The question this time was, what's the biggest challenge your customs team faces when trying to modernise your operations? And you could select more than one issue, but here are the answers. So the top 3 were clear. 43% selected legacy systems and limited integration. 39% selected poor and inconsistent data, and 38% selected dependence on brokers and external partners. So most of you are not blocked by one issue alone, and you are caught in a mix of old sort of IT, data issues, and external dependency. But on top of that, 30% picked the lack of resources or time. 26% picked limited visibility and reporting, and 16% picked difficulty building a business case. And that tells us kind of 2 things. First, that the pressure is real. As you know, you're doing the job and being on the coal face, that teams feel stretched and still have to improve data systems and controls at the same time. And second, this isn't really only a technology story. So people, process, data, and governance all show up in these answers and reflect the 5 dimensions. So yeah, thank you to everyone who gave their answers there and their insight as to what is causing you challenges at the moment. Okay, then on to the first of the sections. So we're going to be talking about customs modernisation, and let's start with why modernisation matters at the moment, because basically it's sort of no longer optional. The customs world is really changing. You're going to know better than anyone. But the customs landscape is really moving towards data-driven compliance, and authorities are using data to spot patterns, not just read sort of single entries. We have the EU customs reform that is pushing more checks into central systems, and this means more scrutiny on data quality and how your process really work. There are new regimes coming up like ESG reporting, you've got CBAM, you have EUDR, and that all increases your traceability pressure. And then one declaration now feeds into tax, into sustainability and supply chain decisions. And on top of that, you then see more real-time data and integration demands. And all of this lands in teams that already feel stretched, and most are not really getting extra headcount from what we see. So more manual work is not an option. And the only realistic way forward is to change sort of how customs work is organized across the people, the process, the data, the technology, and the governance. And that is what we mean when we talk about modernizing customs operations. So, to modernize successfully, we think that customs teams will need to evolve across 5 key dimensions. And to keep this practical, we created a simple model with 5 dimensions, as I just mentioned: people, process, data, technology, governance, and compliance. And if any one of these lags behind, it can then really pull the others down. And strong people with weak data may still struggle. You might have great tools without clear processes, and they become very expensive spreadsheets. Governance without visibility can become box ticking. So as we go through the webinar, please have a think about how or which of these feel strongest in your organization today and which feels the weakest. But we've also turned this 5 dimensions into a customs modernization matrix, which I'll share with you now. And this is really showing your journey from manual to predictive across the 5 dimensions. And at level 1, you're managing sort of through effort. At level 3, you have structure and some integration. At level 5, you can use data and automation to anticipate issues instead of reacting. But this table could really describe almost any customs department that we speak to. And most organizations are going to sit in different places on each dimension. And the goal today is not to get a perfect score, but the goal is to really have a view of where you think you are and about what holds you back. But this is what we'll hopefully uncover. But I would like to mention as well that this matrix is really an interpretation of what we see, interpretation of how customs operations tend to evolve based on what we actually see. And it's not a formal standard, but it's a simple model to structure the conversation. And this matrix will then be used as the basis to provide your modernization score after the webinar. So hopefully that's all clear. So let's dive into the first section and get onto the people. So most teams today, we think that they sit between two worlds, and we will refer to this as the old and the modern world. So today, customs often looks like it's data entry and firefighting. There's spreadsheets, there's emails, there's people retyping data, chasing documents and fishing issues when something goes wrong. So in the old world, the job is really about sort of typing into systems, correcting errors. You find problems in files and inboxes, not on one particular view. You may be strong on HS codes, origin, valuation, AEO, but less confident with data and AI. And then really customs gets called at the end to fix issues. And most hours go into re-entering data and responding to urgent requests. But the modern picture really needs to be different. And systems handle routine typing and checks. We'd like to have people working from dashboards and focusing on exceptions. Core custom knowledge really stays, but you add in skills about tools and analytics and AI. And ideally, sort of customs sits with supply chain, tax, and finance when decisions are going to be made. And then time shifts from really doing to reviewing and steering. But out of all the dimensions, we think the biggest shift really is in people. And you now need people who can read legislation, understand HS codes, origin, valuation, AEO, work with custom software and GTS and the other systems, and then read reports and spot patterns and challenge AI outputs. And the message was clear from the responses received in the content collaborations that we've been working on recently. And if you want to modernize, then you have to invest in skills before you invest in other areas. But Ludo, just sort of bring you into here. So do you have an example of a company that has really sort of evolved their people and their teams from all the people that you actually speak to, or the companies?
Yeah, maybe one example that pops into my mind is a food company. It's not Jens's company. It's another one that we're here serving. They are operating in five different countries, and they had a scattered landscape and a lot of brokers, and what they were doing. Their customs team was basically firefighting. They were creating broker instructions, doing spot checks, making sure that the broker was doing what they asked to do. Constantly in that reactive mode, sharing EAD documents, sending them around, following up on things like that. And they decided to automate a part of that process. Not completely everything is automated. They automated 4 of the 5 countries. The other one is a bit more too complex to automate. So they revamped that team and had 2 people who basically took additional trainings and are now working more on how you say it, like more strategic topics, looking at where they could claim preference, helping the procurement team in decisions. Okay, can we move our supply chain without having impacts on anti-dumping or stuff like that? So they did it like that, and now they're working out of with a centralized team. helping a broker on a couple of very complex processes that they can't automate, and the other part of the team is really working more on the strategic topics. So that's an example of how you could evolve your team. Of course, it's not an exercise that they did in 3 months. It was a process of 2 years, but they set up their team for the future, basically with all the challenges that are coming up in the coming years.
All right, super. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's go on to the first poll question. So let me bring that up onto the screen, and let's launch that. And the UI from Zoom wasn't super helpful on this when we're trying to do it, but yeah, if you would like to then choose your answer based on these. So how would you describe your customs team current way of working? So mostly reactive, perform manual admin tasks and firefighting. Roles and responsibilities are defined, but most work is still manual. Repeatable tasks are starting to be automated, but people still drive most activities manually. The team operates system-driven workflows and automation support, or custom staff act as strategic advisors using real-time data insights. So like I mentioned, yeah, if you do want to get your modernization score after the webinar, then you will need to answer all 5.
I think Jens will also talk a little bit about his people part later in his presentation on how they organize. Pretty impressive what they've done at the Danone group, to be honest.
Okay, let's give that another 10 seconds. All right, wonderful. I'm going to end that there. Thank you to everyone. Let's share those results there. So yeah, option 1 is 26%, option 2 is 29%, option 3, 29, option 4 is 17, and number 5 is 0. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone there. All right, let's move on to the next section here. So we move on to process. So yeah, process may sound boring to some, but in customs, it can be where the money and the risk sits. So a lot of that comes from predictable, transparent, and well-structured procedures at the border. And that same logic applies inside your company as well. So if your workflows and responsibilities are unclear, no system will actually fix it. So in the old world, the same shipment is handled in different ways depending on who touches it. The responsibilities could be fuzzy and the work bounces between people. Key steps live in inboxes, not in sort of clear procedures, and new joiners learn by asking colleagues, not from a real shared process, and every change project feels slow because as nothing is actually standard. But the modern picture would be different, and you have one core way of working for standard flows. Handover points are clear and each step has an owner. Procedures match the reality and easy to explain to new joiners and auditors. Sites and brokers follow the same main flow with controlled local variations, and change becomes easier because you adjust one model, not 10 different versions. And for example, at Danone, we had Jens Boss actually joined us on a virtual roundtable that we had last month, and we were then talking about this exact topic as well, modernization in customs. And then she mentioned about how Danone, with their processes, they have global customs pillars with streamlined processes. They have regular self-audits. They've got active monitoring of legislation, and they actually have a customs community internally that meets and trains each other. So as the experts in our content collaboration recommended, it's imperative that you get your processes and design under control. And Jens, would you just like to sort of briefly mention a little bit more about sort of the types of things that you do internally for your processes?
Yeah, well, we, as you said, we have the Danone Customs Community, as we call it. It's in fact a gathering of everyone within on a global level that has been some involvement with customs operations, and where, as a customs team, we would like to present the processes that we have in place. We have, of course, procedures, and these are all built on what we call the 3 pillars. I think you don't have to explain them, which are origin, classification, and valuation. And on a monthly basis, we have this gathering. So it's quite often a lot of people are joining us, and we just touch on a specific topic. It can be okay. We have we talk about valuation, which are the best practices in that area. Then we share information with each other, the challenges that we have, and we look at how we can improve. And that's quite successful. We do it since beginning of 2024. So it's the second year that we are having these monthly gatherings. And I have to say that it's quite successful also in a sense that there is now much more attention on customs and all the procedures that we have in place today.
Yeah, nice. Okay, great stuff. Thank you for that, Jens. Okay, great. So process, as I mentioned, we're going to move on to the question here. So let me launch that. There we go. So poll question 2. Bear with me a second. Let me stop sharing that one, and then here we bring up. There we go. Okay, so poll question 2 should be on your screen now. So yeah, how standardized and efficient are your customs processes? Option 1 is processes differ by country broker with little documentation. Some standard operating procedures exist but not consistently followed. Standardized procedures across main sites with KPIs tracked. Automated workflows ensure consistency and quality control, and processes are continuously optimized based on data and analytics. So I'll remind you at everyone, but yes, if you do want the score, then please answer all 5 of the questions.
Yeah, and maybe to add a little bit to this process part, if for companies that already went for an IAO certification, they have to document and standardize a couple of these processes. But I think as we listen to Jens, you can go a lot further than just doing just enough to get the AO authorization in there. So a lot of opportunities to improve these things from my side at least.
All right, thanks, Ludo. All right, let's end the poll there. Let's share the results. So for option 1 is 14%. Option 2 is 59%. Option 3 is 16. Option 4 is 5. And then option 5 is at 7%. All right, great. Thank you. All right, perfect. Let's move on to section 3, on to data. So here we go. So if there is one area where research, practice, and expert opinion all align, it really is the data, and the experts we asked all said the same. But in more concrete terms, data is really the heartbeat of modern customs. And again, in the virtual roundtables and the content collaborations that we've been running, then this was always the biggest topic that people had a lot of thoughts to give comment on. But I was also actually quite shocked by this stat in a 2025 study by the Customs Support Group and BCG found that in Europe, customs clearance took around 2 to 3 days on average, and about 20 to 40% of delays come from avoidable classification or documentation errors. So almost half of the delay in many shipments is not really around the port or the truck or the customs office. It was really about the data that was being sent. And today, customs data is really scattered. The ERP might show one thing, the broker might file another, and someone else has a third version in Excel. So in the old world, then nobody is fully sure of who owns customs data. And really, again, it was another comment from, I think, BMW at this point, what really is the definition of customs data. The same product or supply could look different in different systems. Errors are found after filing and not before. A lot of time goes into rework, issuing credit notes and explaining differences, and reports are built for audits and not really for improving the process. But the modern picture would look different, and one team would clearly own the customs data, and changes follow a simple flow. Key fields are aligned across the ERP, across your brokers and the customs systems, and checks catch most issues before submission, not weeks or months later. and corrections drop, and you can then use the trends to improve your codes, your origins, and your values. And then data becomes something you use to steer your decisions, not only to defend some of your past choices. But Ludo, just sort of going back to you here, how could a more sort of future-proof landscape look, or what would it look like around sort of data?
There's often we hear a couple of different things for this: a centralized data hub, a control tower. What's in the name? I see Jens already smiling. But I think that's the key. Getting that information at least in the same format on a single place. I can help you already unlock a lot of insights. If you see how you have to sometimes beg to get your own data, like if you look at the UK, they at least have their MSS data available for what happened in the last month. But in other jurisdictions, that's not the case. So you have to then start gathering information from different sources, do a lot of manipulations to get to a single source of truth. And then later on, if you have that data in a centralized place, and then you can start using that data to feed into a data lake where you can build Power BI tools, Tableau tools on top of it to do more in-depth analysis. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and there was an apparel company, and they made a dashboard for their procurement team where they could see what would the impact would be if they switched their supply chains from country A to country B. Is there anti-dumping? What is the duty rate going to be? What is the impact on my landed cost for all these things? So that is how far you even can go if you have all your data at least in the same format in one central place in a data hub or a control tower or whatever you want to call it. So a lot of things to unlock in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, perfect. All right, great. Thanks. Let's move on to the next poll question. All right, poll question 3 around the data. Let's launch that. And we are asking, how well managed and integrated is your custom data? Is your data fragmented across spreadsheets, brokers, and systems? You've got a basic data structure maintained locally. It's centralized, cleansed data sources used in inputs and feeding dashboards. It's integrated, validated, data automatically exchanged, and data is used for forecasting, risk analysis, and decision support. All right, some answers coming in. I can see roughly the total number of people that are giving their answers here, so I'll make sure we hit that number.
And we could do a webinar on each of these topics itself, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, I think that is all of the answers that have come in. So great, thank you for that. Let's end the poll and share the results. So for option 1 is 34%, option 2, 34%, option 3 is 12, option 4 is 7, and option 5 is 12% there. So wonderful, thank you very much for that. All right, let's move on.
Excel still runs the world.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, good stuff. Let's go on to the 4th dimension here, into technology. All right, so technology is where sort of many people want to start, but again, from the experts and the research, many people are saying it's really not the starting point, but it can certainly be a force multiplier once you have the people, process, and data sorted. But in the old world, then, key steps happen outside the system that are meant to support them. The same data is typed into ERP systems, into broker portals, into custom tools, and almost every flow gets a manual treatment, even when the rules are stable. Special cases could be buried in inboxes and urgent calls, and you often need to ask others where things stand. But the modern picture could work differently, and systems hold the core work instead of emails. Key data will then flow from the ERP into customs and broker tools without retyping. Standard flows are automated as far as the rules will allow. and people will see exception list and focus on what really needs to be reviewed. And status and risk are visible on simple screens, so you don't need to chase updates. But for example, in the recent virtual roundtable that I keep mentioning, a participant described a customs control tower, and that was with a single broker for the whole of the EMEA region. Before the change, they worked with around 60 different brokers, and this is something we see quite a lot, isn't it, Ludo, with people working with that many different brokers as well, which is also quite a big surprise. But now sort of SAP feeds into one European platform, which that then feeds into local systems, and they then have a full transparency of the imports and exports and can run analytics on the same data set as well. So it's a really smart use of getting the most out of your existing SAP SAP GTS plus one integrated broker platform. But Ludo, how could companies sort of really aim for that sort of control tower view in their organizations?
In my opinion, now we're talking about GTS or other tools, but what these tools can do is basically like build a smart layer on top of your ERP system. If you have because your ERP system mainly contains transactional data, a lot of information, your sales orders, your purchase orders, but that layer that is needed on top to start working in an automated way with customs. You need your additional documents, certifications, authorizations, all that information that can be added on top of it in a tool, and that tool can then also feed and enrich your or either enrich your ERP system or at least enrich your data that you have in house, and give you control and overview of everything that is happening in your process today and in the future.
Would you say that is an ultimate goal for companies to get to that control tower, or doesn't have to go that far? Or?
Eventually, if you look at the future for customs, if you look at the customs reform and the goal of the trusted trader process, where you have to have all your data centralized in one platform, I think all the companies will have to aim at least to make their data available in one single source. So I think customs is forcing us to that future even.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thanks for that. All right, now let's go on to the poll question for this one. Technology, let's bring that up. Here we go. So poll question 4. What best describes your technology landscape? Are you reliant on Excel, emails, and brokers, using limited digital tools but not connected to ERP or WMS? ERP and brokers partially connected via a data exchange. You have automated customs platform integrated with your ERP and authorities. And the 5th one is advanced automation with AI-driven analytics and monitoring.
Or a mix of these things. So I think there's a couple of companies who might have that process partly automated with the data exchanges to certain brokers or to certain tools, and other parts are still done via email, also depending a little bit on the party who is doing the filing for them. So might be a mix of everything. And I think that might be a more realistic approach also. You can't, not everybody can automate everything, I think.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, maybe Jens will confirm, but there's always an exception that nobody has thought of.
Well, indeed, it's always a hybrid system, and that you will use.
Yeah. Somebody that needs to import
automation, full automation. But I think in the end, you have to be realistic, and there are always some exceptions that you can't automate.
Of course. Then suddenly you need to import a new machine or something like that, and they come knocking on your door.
Okay, we haven't got to the numbers that I've seen before. So if you have answered the other 2 and you haven't answered this one, then please give your answer now, because otherwise we won't be able to give the score if we don't have all 5 the answers. Okay, all right. I'm going to end the poll there. Thank you to everyone. All right, so answer 1, it was 24%. Answer 2 is 35%. Answer 3 is 24%. Answer 4 is 14%. Then answer 5 is 3%.
Maybe Joe, I saw somebody raised his hand, but can you just type in the question in the Q&A, then we can have a look at it, please.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, all right, let's move on. So I'm very pleased to announce that we have Jens here, as I mentioned at the beginning. So Jens is going to show us what this kind of looks like in real life. Jens and his team have been on their own journey to modernize their customs operations, and he's going to share how automation has helped streamline his processes, improve visibility, and create a connected customs ecosystem. So yeah, thank you very much for being here, Jens, and over to you.
Yeah, well,
I will give you control of the slides, and you can do that with the.
Just
Give that a try.
Seems to be some.
Is there a bit of a delay for you? Okay.
Well, yeah, maybe quickly introducing Danone. I don't think that needs a lot of introduction. I think most people know what we are doing. But in fact, our mission is bring health through food to as many people as possible. And in fact, that's something that began really with the roots of the company. In 1919, Isaac Carrasso, which is our founder, who was based in Spain, because that's also something maybe to clarify. We're not a French, from origin French company, but a Spanish company. And he in fact started to make a yogurt as really a medicine for children with intestinal infections. And he used therefore a culture from the Pasteur Institute, which became finally a yogurt, which we know today, and which is of course sold now as a food product and not anymore as a medicine. We're not focusing only on health, but also on the planet. Sustainability is important for Danone. And we're a global company. Our products are today available in about 120 different countries. We ourselves are present as Danone in 55 countries. And today we almost reach 90,000 people of employees, colleagues of me worldwide. As I mentioned, bringing health through food to as many people as possible is our key message, is our key mission. We try, in fact, and this you can see on the 3 different business lines that we have within Danone, and that we, in fact, try to have a product available for the consumer in every stage of life, if it's really from birth till, in fact, the last phases of life. So we can see we have, I call it sometimes 4 different business lines, but the first one, most important one for us, is our dairy products, so the yogurt that we are most known for, and plant-based products, so the Alpro portfolio. And then we have a very important one also is our medical foods, our specialized nutritions, that goes from infant formula up to tube feeding for medical purposes. But also important is our water business with some famous global famous brands like Evian and Volvic. Well, then bringing you a little bit to the organization, because in fact, as Ludo said, we had quite some revolution or evolution in our customs organization. In fact, within Danone, we are a very young team. And young in the sense that we're not exist that long as a centralized team for customs. But let's say that customs was always a bit in the background for many years. It all changed a bit about 5 years ago. There was like Brexit that turned frictionless trade into customs checks and paperwork. We had the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Now recently Trump trade wars. A lot of European legislation that changed, like EUDR, but also other upcoming changes, also the UCC reform. So in fact, our organization recognized that there was a need for all these scalable changes, that there should be a structure that navigated the organization on customs and trade compliance topics. So about beginning of 2024, the Customs Competence Center, the European Customs Competence Center, was established. And we, in fact, support all the different categories, both strategically and operationally, on customs matters. So we are organized, as you can see, in the different categories. So we have a customs lead for each of the categories. And yeah, also part of this webinar today, we're also happy to have Aditya joining the team as a customs analyst. So he will be, in fact, a business analyst, deep diving in data, doing analysis to see where we can strategically improve. So if what is in fact the added value of our department? I always try to bring this to our higher management with this pictogram and focusing on 3 C's. Why is that? Because we use also in Danone the 4 C's, which is cost, carbon, consumer, and cash. So that sounds a bit good that we can say we have the 3 C's of customs. First one, most important one, is on the top. That's, of course, having the most attention in the organization, which is cost. We try to identify, of course, to improve productivities and reduce customs-related expenses. Second one, of course, compliance, safeguarding our license to operate, reducing risks with a focus on the 3 pillars of customs: origin, classification, and valuation. And then the last is continuity. We have to prepare for the future, making sure that we're ready for all the upcoming changes. For example, UCC reform, we also closely follow up. This is a little bit more explanation. I will just leave it for you to read maybe one of the slides or provide it. Good. Well, maybe a quick introduction to the self-filing journey that Danone took. It's not new for us. We have already started with an in-house customs process since 2009. And if I have to believe my colleague, Walter's colleague, Sylvie, who is already 35 years in Evian, she did it even before the existence of the common, the European Union, and so the free market. So we started, in fact, in 2009 with PLDA Web, and the web-based version of Belgian customs for exports out of Belgium. Very soon we understood that this was absolutely not user-friendly, so we moved to a provider, Organifor, and we used the tool OLS Sys Customs, which we used, of course, quite for about 10 years. But then came Brexit, and in preparation of Brexit, we wanted to optimize the process. We understood that the existing solution was limited to Belgian coverage only. We were looking to multiple countries where we were active. So that's the moment where we approached Customs for Trade, and we started to build a relation with Customs for Trade. Also there, one of the important things was, one of the advantages working with Customs for Trade was the introduction of mirroring of our declarations, or the double filing. As you can see, we have, of course, since 2009 grown a lot within Customs. 2009, we initially started with 40-50 declarations on a yearly base, on a monthly base even. And in 2024, last year, we reached more than 40,000 declarations self-filed in multiple jurisdictions. So we're now doing activities in Belgium, France, UK, and Ireland. This is only self-filing, and we see, of course, a lot of opportunities still, because this is only representing 20 to 30% of our total volume on customs declarations. Now, a little bit deep diving, just explaining a little bit how we manage this famous double filing within the CAS system. You see single message, double filing. So with one single ingest message from our SAP system, combined with CAS configuration. So in fact, the ERP message is very limited data, some basic logistics data. which we combine with some standard configuration that is in CAS. It's master data, decision tables. We in fact file 2 declarations at the same time. So we see on the first instance that we submit a declaration for export out of Belgium. We submit to the Belgian authorities. And in the second phase, once that the declaration is released, we also file a second declaration towards UK HMRC. So this is quite efficient, one ingest, and we have immediately the 2 declarations created. Now, a sneak peek a little bit on what are the objectives where we would like to go next year. You also see our global ambassador, Carlos Alcaraz, joining there because we are really preparing ourselves for a future success. Well, what we would like to do, looking ahead to 2026, our key focus will be automation. Not just as a technology initiative, but also as a way of fundamentally transform the way we work. We want to free, in fact, the operational workload and shift the team's focus from repetitive executions and the operational tasks to governance and monitoring. The ultimate goal is to be more compliant, more data-driven, and more cost-efficient, setting up then customs and trade compliance as a really true strategic partner for the business rather than just making sure that goods flow with some declarations. That's in fact the goal that we have for Strategy 2026. How we would like to do that? Well, the first big step is that transformation is automation, especially about the self-filing, the custom self-filing. As I said, 20-30% today is only done in-house, and we would like to transfer that further, that we have more and more self-filing in-house. We'll start transitioning that to more and more in-house customs declaration file. It gives us, of course, more control over our data, fewer dependencies on customs brokers, reducing then again the cost, and also faster resolution on issues because we see real time what's happening. So we also want, by embedding then the automation into the workflows that we have, we'll want to reduce the manual interventions. We also would like to eliminate rework first time right, and make also sure that our data is more reliable, which means that we can shift our attention really to insights, not out inputs, so that we not depend that much on information that we receive from external parties like brokers. Then the second pillar where we focus on next year is building an end-to-end process for preferential determinations, preferential origin determination. This will standardize how we calculate and document origin across all regions, directly integrated in our ERP and trade systems. This is in fact not only about compliance, because of course that's important first instance, but it's also about unlocking financial value by maximizing the use of the free trade agreements that there are and where we trade with. Because we are aware that we are not benefiting enough of all the free trade agreements there are still opportunities there. So we in fact want to reduce the unnecessary duties that we pay. The process will also give us, or that the idea is that we have an end-to-end, so that means that we have a full traceability and control over one of the most sensitive trade areas that we have, because in our setup we have multiple entities, commercial entities that are involved in every transaction, so that makes the whole traceability on origin and preferential origin even more complex.
Yes, maybe just sorry to quickly interrupt, but there was a question coming in on one of your previous slides. Constanze asked how many people you have in your team to manage those in-house customs filings.
Well, how we are a bit organized, as you saw in the beginning of the presentation, this is the Center of Customs Competence. So we are in fact the strategical team. But how we are organized is that the supply points, so the factories itself, have a team in place to do the day-to-day operations. So every shipment that is loaded, planned, they just are trained. They have a small training on customs in order to operate the CAS system. So per plant, we have to consider that there are 5 to 10 people trained in order to do customs formalities. But our team itself on a European level, we are 5 today. But that's purely strategy and advice that we give. And the plans that we do customs self-filing today, we have about 5 business units that have that do self-filing. So it's quite 40 to 50 people.
I can't imagine it's a full-time job that they're constantly.
No, that's in fact the reason. We know that's a side job. That these are warehouse operators mainly that do this as an additional activity, and that's why we say we would like to reduce that workload to use more CAS as a black box, I would say.
Yes.
That's like I also like to use the term touchless customs, and that should be in fact strategy.
That's the dream of everybody.
Yes, and that's also this dream that we are trying to achieve. So but there's still as I said, 20-30% is still on in-house. So we still have to work on integrating the activities from brokers more and more in-house, and then the next step is really focusing on how we can get the data even better integrated in CAS so that we have a full automated process. Then we reach to the last two at least. So next is, we have just recently launched a global classification project. Goal is quite simple. One clear standardized process for product classification worldwide. Say one standardized process. It doesn't mean that we will classify standardized, and that's also not possible. At least we would like to define roles, responsibilities, and workflows so that everyone knows who does what, because today that's sometimes not 100% clear. Whether that's now assigning codes, reviewing accuracy. Assigning codes we see more as a responsibility of the product development teams. Reviewing the accuracy is then a task which we see more for our customs team. And then, of course, it's like maintaining master data, and who's making sure that the master data is uniform across the different business units. We believe that consistent classification is the founding for compliance. We see also more and more in new legislations that they refer to the classification of a product, whether a product is targeted or not. But it's also important not only for compliance, correct duty payments, and of course making sure that we have the classification available for smooth cross-border trade. And then the last, and that's also a bit of the reason why we recently hired an additional person as customs analyst. Finally, none of all the work goes without data and strong governance. So this dedicated person will have to make sure that we improve our data flow. As we already said, it's quite challenging. We receive data in different formats, and that's the most challenging. In fact, it's quite simple to extract one file from CAS and where we have all the data available, but once that you have to combine it with additional information from customs broker and multiple custom brokers, it becomes a bit more complex to have a uniform data governance. So the role will help us a bit on dashboards, KPIs, to monitor our customs performance, our risk exposure, and this on a global level, not only country by country, but we would like to have it really on a global European, but global level as well. And of course, the goal is there with these insights that we'll be able to move from reactive problem solving to be more proactive, data-driven, and decision making. So that's a bit of the summary of what we want to do. We want it's not a revolution, I would say, because we have already started this journey. It's more an evolution further on. Automation definitely gives us the capacity, the governance gives us the control, and data gives us, in fact, all the necessary insights to make the correct decisions. And altogether, this will really help us to build further on the customs function within Danone on an efficient way, in a compliant way, and also making sure that strategically it aligns with the goals, with our targets as Danone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jens. And yeah, it gives them a lot of good food for thought there for people that are joining us today. So let me just stop the slide control and then let me get back on screen. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions for you at the end as well, and there have been a couple that have come in, so we'll get to those at the very end. So let's quickly finish off section 5 about the governance and the compliance. So governance and compliance is really where the rules and day-to-day operations meet. So with the EU customs reform, with CBAM, with EUDR, customs compliance is really under more scrutiny and relies much more on complete and reliable data. So in the old world, you only see the full picture when someone is really asking for it, and you're rebuilding the story from emails and files and different reports and things. But the controls actually happens in bursts around sort of audits, not generally in sort of daily work. Issues can often surface when authorities or the business actually raise them, and the same problems can repeat because lessons really sort of stay local. But the modern picture is hopefully going to be different, and you see key customs KPIs regularly, often every day. Dashboards give views across the sites and the brokers and your procedures. You have checks built into your process through sampling and simple rules, and then alerts sort of highlight the unusual patterns before they become formal findings. So issues then feeding back into the training and the data and the processes so governance can actually improve over time. But Ludo, bringing this sort of back to the benefits of automation, can you sort of give examples of how CAS could actually sort of help with the whole sort of governance and compliance part?
Yeah, I think our customs knowledge team, what they do, they try to build in a lot of legal content into validation checks before we even send declarations to customs. I think there was also a question from somebody on how many declarations you can process in an hour. It's not a matter of processing the declarations. It's a matter of working more from a black box point of view, managing by exceptions, mainly only adding some additional information for license plates because it's for the UK, stuff like that. And then the system, of course, does these checks. If you're indicating, okay, it's an organic product you want to import into the UK, do you have the correct certificates? Do you have your authorizations added correctly? If not, we stop these declarations and make sure that the data is at least compliant before you try to send it in. And also, we help also our clients with writing out processes, SOPs on how to handle specific errors. I think Jens did the same with his team. If he says, okay, we teach these warehouse operators, it's basic instructions that they have to follow, basic checks that they have to do. And that's basically it. The legal content that is fed into the system can make sure that you do compliant declarations and there are no anomalies in it, at least.
All right, great, super. Thanks for that. Okay, last poll question. So let's launch this one. So poll question 5 around governance and compliance. So how do you track performance and ensure compliance? You have reactive audits with limited control of visibility. You have periodic checks and manual reports. You have regular KPI tracking and dashboards. You have real-time monitoring and alerts and audit trails, or you have a continuous improvement cycle driven by analytics and insights. We might go over the hour just by a few minutes, just to squeeze in the questions as well. So hopefully you can stay with us just a little bit longer. And we'll try and squeeze it in the last few minutes that we have. Yeah, if you do have any questions, then please do add them into the chat box. All right, I think that is all of the answers that we've had come in. So let's end the poll there. And final share. So number 1 is 31%. Number 2 is 46%. Number 3 is 14. Number 4 is 9. And there is no one for number 5. Great stuff. Thank you, everyone, for giving your insights and input into that. All right, so let's just sort of wrap up the webinar now. So really, it's just going to be talking about the future of modern customs, and looking ahead. One thing is for sure is really that the pace of change isn't really going to slow down with all the EU customs reforms, with the data hubs, with new reporting. All of these depend on a certain level of digital maturity, and the organizations that are investing in the modernization and automation today are really sort of building the foundations for your compliance and competitiveness for tomorrow. So as we know, and as we are seeing, that the future of customs is really no longer around sort of manual, reactive, or fragmented work. It's really a connected, automated, and insight driven. But we've put together a quick modernization roadmap for you. So step 1 is really to map where you are. Using the modernization matrix, it will help you to score your customs operation honestly. Find out where you're still very manual or sort of person dependent, and where you already have structure and system support. Step 2 is to really about picking 1 or 2 priorities. For most organizations, the blockers are around sort of process and data, sometimes technology. But ask where fixing 1 would actually help to then reduce the risk or the effort fastest, and then focus there. Steps 3 is really to fix the basics. So really sort of clarify who owns the decisions, write simple standard operating procedures for classification, for origin valuation, and things like special procedures. Try and agree on 1 source of truth for customs data in your core systems. Step 4 is to use customs automation software to, I always say automation software to support that design, and then reuse the master data, apply the rules in the systems, remove retyping and email-based checks, but let the platform keep the decision logs and run the standard controls. Step 5 is to try and then connect to the ecosystem. So link your ERPs to your custom solution and your brokers, so everyone is using the same data and gets the same statuses. Try and really move out of the work of spreadsheets and really into structured workflows and dashboards. Step 5 is really to use reports and analytics to guide improvement. So once that the basics are in place, you can then see where errors come from, which lanes and products cause issues, and where to target the reviews or adjust your procedures. And then finally is really step 7. You don't have to do it alone. And modernizing customs really touches on IT, supply chain, on tax and finance, and work with the right partners, work with the right brokers and solution providers, and really help really use their experience and their benchmarks and tools, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you can sort of move faster with less risk. So let's get on to the Q&A. Let's kind of squeeze this in. Okay, we've got a few minutes. We're going to be slightly over, but I just want to get through these ones. Jens, very quickly to you. Have you found that you can't, or what have you found that you can't automate during your journey? Is there anything that has, shown itself?
Yeah, there are of course things that you can't automate, but then even then we are looking into how we can solve that issue. And one of the things is in fact IPAFs. As we are dealing with fresh dairy products importing into the UK, we are requiring IPAFs notification. It's today something that where no API exists for. It's only a website, a web platform where you can announce the goods. So you could think, okay, it's not automatable, or if I don't know if that's the correct English word, but we are in fact looking into creating a robot because we have all the data available. So all the data that is needed for the iPaths, we have somewhere in our systems. It's in CAS or it's in our ERP system, in our TMS system. We have all this data available. So now, thanks to all the technology there is, we are looking with our IT team to develop a kind of robot that collects all the data and submits it in the iPaths platform, so that we again can go to a more automated process for import in the UK.
You're going to make a lot of people jealous, Jens.
But we don't have it yet. We're still developing.
All right, perfect. Thanks. Yes, I would like to get through some of these questions. So if you have to drop off the call, then thank you for joining. But yeah, I would like to get through some of these questions for you. Jens, another one for you. What is the one thing that you've changed in the last 12 months that's had the highest impact?
Well, due to some changes a couple of years ago, we finally saw that we were paying a lot of import duties on our products originating from the UK or from the European Union that were re-imported into Ireland. And we have, in fact, that was due to the missing of traceability throughout the supply chain. We have integrated a so-called returned goods relief regime with the necessary traceability, so that we can, in fact, trace back from where the goods come when they enter into Ireland, and that we also can trace back to the original export if it was like a transaction export out of the EU, import in the UK, and then re-exportation to the Ireland. Because today we are organized that UK and Ireland are still like one market, one business unit. That's of course bringing these challenges.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thanks to this, we can save quite a lot of import duties, because in the end, as I said, products are coming or from the UK, or produced from the UK, or they originate from the EU. So in theory, we should never pay on those products we qualify for the origin.
Perfect. Okay. Ludo, just a couple for you here. So how can we consolidate data from multiple sources and manage it efficiently, leveraging both internal tools and external solutions to ensure quality, traceability, and agility in decision making? It's quite a
The answer is basically control tower. Right? That's what we've been discussing already for over a couple of things. There's a couple of ways to achieve this. A lot of our current clients are working with the type of middleware who is sending data out of a TMS, out of a warehouse management system, out of an ERP system, get that data, send that data to the different customs authorities, get everything back, push some data back into their ERP system. So there are ways to automate that, but there's more and more need of an endpoint solution that can handle these things, and don't send the data out of 3 or 4 systems to the 4 different other receiving parties. Otherwise, you get into a very complex setup that is difficult to maintain.
All right, perfect. The other one here is, what would you say is the ideal starting point for customs processes, well, modernizing your customs processes? Now, we've talked about a lot of them here, but if you kind of had to pick on one, would it again be the data? Would it be the people?
For me, people is key, because the people determine everything else. You can have very crappy data, but if you don't have the good people to have to update that data, so everything starts with the people and a philosophy as a team where you want to be. I think the example of Jens and his customs community, it's one of the next steps that they took. But if you look, we work already together with Danone for a while. The vision of Danone and the people of Danone really push this project forward. And if you start with the people, then you can also improve your data, improve your processes, work on tools, work on governance, compliance. So everything starts with the people.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. Okay. Just a couple more here. So one from Granola. Does the software handle health certificates?
Sorry, I didn't understand it.
Oh, Ludo, Granola is asking, does the software CAS handle health certificates?
Yeah, well, that was what Jens was describing. It's manual work still for UK. For the Netherlands, we can apply for certificates at to the software. So it all depends a little bit of the jurisdiction where it is in. We can add the iPass automatically to the declarations via some ingest models and stuff like that. But the health certificates, requesting the health certificates itself is depending on the local authorities.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. So Bart and to Jack, we will get back to you directly on the questions that you have asked in the Q&A. So I hope that will be okay, but we will then finish up the webinar now. So yeah, just to mention about what comes next. So as I kept saying throughout the webinar, that if you had answered all 5 of the poll questions, then we will follow up with you, and we will then send you your scorecard, which will then have your actual score on there, with some extra kind of insights and some steps you can think about doing next and things like that. We also have a free customs automation strategy session available as well. So if you'd like to take us up on that, there will be a link at the bottom of the scorecard, or once you then open this PDF again, you'll be able to link through to the place where you need to register for that. And as always, we've got some great resources on the website. We've got a whole host of other webinars. We've got a load of customer stories and things like that, and a load of white papers. And also, as I've mentioned a couple of times, we do also have the content collaboration going on. So if you'd like to give your opinion about customs operations and how they're changing and modernizing, and what you would do, or what you think really drives the successful customs modernization, then we'd love to hear from you, and then we can feature it in the next ones that are upcoming and share it on LinkedIn. So that is it. Yeah, a little bit over, so I apologize for that, but I really would like to thank everyone for joining. Really thank you to Jens and Ludo for your insights. It's really great information that you've provided there. If you have any questions, then please do reach out after the webinar. We will be in touch in the next few days with the recording and everything I mentioned at the beginning to the Content Hub. And yeah, the last thing to say is I'd like to wish you a really lovely end of the year. Happy holidays to all of you if you're celebrating. And we will be in touch very shortly in the new year with our next webinars and everything else that we're doing at C4T. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.